Mo Salah dropped from the Liverpool squad ahead of their game versus Inter Milan after his explosive comments to the media on Saturday after the 3-3 draw with Leeds. We're talking everything Liverpool and the fallout of that game and the interview. Plus, Arsenal lose for only the second time this season, but City have closed the gap to just 2 points. That plus Chelsea failing again, Spurs getting back to winning ways, and what will happen with Manchester United tonight. I'm joined as ever by Henry Wright. Please like the stream, subscribe, and hit that hype button. If you've got any hypes left, get the show out there as best you can. But morning or afternoon, depending when everyone's watching this, Henry, how are you, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. Good, mate. Happy Spurs back to winning ways. You know, Frank gets a little win over Brentford. You boys potentially could be dropping points tonight. And then Mohamed Salah, you know, goes back to the attitude era of WWE and drops a bombshell on Liverpool. And yeah, now he's out of the squad. So yeah, quite a lot going on. But yeah, I'm all good.
Good, mate. Yeah, loads went on. It was a bit weird that it was all on Saturday, which Premier League scheduling is crazy. It gave me most of a Sunday off, which is nice. But I just felt there was so many games kind of back to back Saturday, the fallout, the Arsenal loss, Chelsea don't win again, Spurs winning. You almost can't cover it all. And then by the time the next day comes, everyone's gone, oh, the hype's over now off most of it. And you're like, oh, you know, you don't get the chance to talk about it all as much. But I wanted to start off with Liverpool. First and foremost, what were your thoughts on what Mo Salah has done here in terms of coming out? And the more you listen to the clip, it's crazy. You know, he basically said he won the league by himself last year. He's been scapegoated. The manager and him don't have a relationship. The club want him out. The club are throwing him under the bus. He's kind of gone at teammates to a certain degree. I think disrespectful to say that, look what I did last year for this club. I won us the league. He's saying that he deserves a place in the team and he shouldn't be dropped. He said the club want him out. The club are using him as a scapegoat and the manager and he don't have a relationship. I mean, that's attacking every facet behind the scenes. He did say, I love the club and will always love the club. Fair enough. But what's your view on what Mo Salah has done here?
Yeah, I mean, it was prime, you know, stone cold, wasn't it? It was literally him against the world. I don't know if you saw Michael Owen's tweet. I actually somewhat agree with what he said. If you haven't seen it, he basically comes out and says he can understand Mohamed Salah's frustration because it was such an important part of that team last year that won the league. But you can't go out there and call the club out like this. You know, he's only got a handful of games and he goes away to the African Cup of Nations and then he's back and he's basically goes on to say, see where the dust lies when you get back. I agree with that stance. You can't come out as much as I admire him for coming out and, you know, it takes balls to do that. And, you know, I like the fact that he's openly said how he feels. However, if that was someone speaking about my club like that, there's no relationship between him and Arne Slot now. Liverpool have a decision to make going forward. Do they keep Mohamed Salah or do they sell Mohamed Salah and get rid of Slot? Like there's a situation there where if you're Edwards and Hughes in that board of directors room this morning and the news has come out, you've dropped Salah, he has to be punished for that. You can't speak about the football club like that. As great as you were last year, let's be honest, this year, you haven't been anywhere near at the level. Liverpool collectively, as a football club this season, have been poor. I mean, the fact that we're only 1 point behind them and they spent 400 million quid. The fact that if you win tonight, you could go above them, just kind of tells how bad they've been. But it's almost like, you know, you're not getting your own way, so you're throwing your toys out the pram. You know, Harry Kane, he said something about Harry Kane saying that, you know, when he didn't score, the media were attacking him. Harry Kane's longest goal drought was 6 games. And yes, he did get attacked, you know, one season wonder and all that. But Harry Kane dealt with it professionally. He did his answers on the pitch. He went and scored goals. You would never see Harry Kane throw Tottenham under the bus like that. I think it's very disrespectful from Mohamed Salah. I'm not going to lie. But I get where he's coming from. If you look at Liverpool, look at Alexander Isak and Salah's situation. You know, you 2-0 up against Leeds. They equalise. Gary Neville said it on commentary. Surely at that point, Arnie Slot should have brought on Isak and should have brought on Salah. For a player like that, who's a world-class talent, it must be frustrating to sit on the bench 3 or 4 games in a row. But you can't do that, mate. You can't. I don't care who you are, Ronaldo, Messi. You can't come and call. No player's bigger than Liverpool. You can't do that to the football club.
I agree completely, in the sense that I get he's frustrated. I get he's annoyed. I get that he feels hard done by. He's obviously got a massive level of expectation upon himself. There's definitely going to be an ego in there as well. There's no doubt about it. And I think all that being said, the season's been awful. There's pressure on him. He's hating what's going on. He's been dropped and he probably feels a bit embarrassed about that. But you can't do what he did. And I understand all the support he gets around, but Slot's got to go. Slot isn't good enough. I'm backing him over Slot because Slot ain't a legend, or he's not a bigger legend as Salah. And my pushback on all of that is I think Mo Salah is a legend of your club. I think there is the genuine possibility that Slot hasn't handled things well. I think there's a possibility that Liverpool look at this and go, look, this man's on 400 grand a week. That's a huge dent of money. We think his legs have gone. I'm using an example here. His legs have gone. We've got to move him on. There's getting dropped. There's move him out the team. There's try and help force a move, an architecting move for January. I get all of that is going on, but I still think there's a way to behave professionally. And I don't like what he's done. And Liverpool have to back Slot in this. The board have to back Slot, not because it's Arne Slot. And this is where Liverpool fans need to, just for a second, I'm not telling you how to feel. I get how you feel, but for a second, drop your emotions and think logically. Your biggest rivals, my club, Man United, we never really had a player power problem until around the January of 2018. Jose gets a new deal. First season, we win 2 trophies. We get back into the Champions League. The second season, we're second place. We're progressing. City at that point were starting to pull away from us in that. So they went on to do Centurions. We finished on around 80 points, but we'd still progressed. And I remember having this conversation with United fans about Jose saying, look, the football was never going to be beautiful, but keep improving the squad. Jose could win us something. Yes, City, you've got 100 points. And I said that skews our minds, but it was our most amount of points we'd had in 3 or 4 seasons. It was our best season in 3 or 4 years on the Premier League level. But because we were so focused on how good City were and how beautiful the football was under Pep, we started, and Jose wanted to get rid of Pogba's and Martial's because his view was they're not right for his brand of football to go to the next level. Our fans sided with the players and the board who backed the players and said to Jose, you're not selling them and getting rid of them. It then created this sort of situation where he lost more and more control. He became more toxic and it all fell apart. Since then, player power has been prevalent at United. And I said it all the way back in 2018, and I'm saying the same thing now about my club, but about Liverpool in this scenario. It's a slippery slope. You protect the position of manager irrespective of who's in it. So the manager might need to go, but you can't allow Mo Salah to do and say what he is, because then you set a precedent that, well, whenever a player feels more powerful or more respected or more loved by the fans than a manager, he can throw him under the bus. He can come out and be unprofessional. He can down tools. He can do whatever it is that Mo Salah is doing. That's a very bad precedent to set. And again, the slippery slope kicks in. Could that happen again and again and again with new managers and different players? If that does become part of your culture, you're finished. So I look at it double-edged. I get why Salah feels hurt. I get why Salah feels mistreated. I get why he's angry. But Liverpool cannot allow this behavior to go unpunished. We've now seen him drop from the squad. They are saying, excuse me, I got a cold. They are saying that it isn't punishment and it's just common sense. I don't buy that line. This is certainly a punishment. It is common sense, but it is a punishment. And let's see what else they do. That being said, Liverpool and Arne Slot need to improve, because the weekend, again, it was a terrible, terrible performance. Great for 50, 60 minutes, but they collapsed again. They fell apart again. And I've never felt the whole season any of this was Mo Salah's fault. He was bad. He has been bad and deserved to be dropped. But Konate, woeful. I thought that the midfield, after they went 2-0 up, ran through too easily. I thought Szoboszlai, who was brilliant most of the game, lazy for their equaliser. Konate giving the penalty away. The conceding that goal at the end, I thought was just crazy. Again, can't defend set pieces. A lot of that is manager. There's multiple other players that have got problems. I think they've still got to remove the manager, by the way. I still think he's got to go. But there looks to be no way out of the minute for Liverpool and Arne Slot. They're just losing.
Do you know what? Konate is extremely lucky because they've got Leone out with an ACL injury, and the only really backup they've got is Joe Gomez. If they would have brought on someone like Mark Gahey in the summer, who arguably has been, other than Gabriel, probably the second best defender in the league this season. He's been unbelievable for Palace. If they brought in someone like that, he wouldn't be getting anywhere near the game time. He has been, this season, for the majority of it, poor. But I'm looking around at that Liverpool team, and other than players like maybe Dominic Szoboszlai, you could maybe argue at times Ekitike and Gakpo, so many poor performances in that Liverpool team. At the weekend, you 2-0 up, cruise control. Don't get me wrong, Ellen Road can be a really tough place to go when the fans, are right up for it. It's arguably one of the toughest in the Premier League. As soon as they got that goal back, everyone just thought, it's starting now, isn't it? And even when they went 3-2 up, to throw away a 2-goal lead, then go 3-2 up and to throw it away again, I'll be honest, this Inter Milan game, I don't think they win. I think Inter Milan will beat them. And then it's the question of, the narrative will be, if Inter Milan do go and beat them, well, if we had Salah, we might have won that game. That will be one of the narratives that come out. But I just think, like you said, they have been poor this season. And he does need to go on this slot, because I don't know who they've got next in the league, but I don't look at Liverpool right now like they are capable of beating anyone in the top 6, top 8, because they're just not strong enough defensively. I mean, Virgil van Dijk is being compared to one of the greatest centre-backs in the Premier League. Right now, he's nowhere near it. He's not. As a captain, you need to grab a team by the scruff of the neck and get through the tough situations. And it's not entirely his fault, because collectively they have been poor. They're scoring goals, but their defence, mate, it is absolutely catastrophic. The next league game, I'll be honest, if he loses against Inter Milan, which I think they will, I don't fancy them to go and beat Brighton, who are on decent form. And I think if he doesn't beat Brighton, he has to go.
Yeah.
If I was a Liverpool fan, I'd have sacked him ages ago. But he's got credit in the bank because of that title last year. But it's damage limitation. They have to finish in the top 4. If they don't, you spent 400 million quid and you're potentially outside of the Champions League.
No, I don't disagree. I don't disagree. I think that he has still got to go. They've got to breathe some life back into this team. But they need to kiss of life, and I think they need a new coach to help them do that.
You know what happened though, don't you?
What's that?
They'll sack him after the Brentford Brighton game, and then they've got us. They'll get a new manager bounce.
Well,
they'll
us,
and then go on a run.
Yeah, I think anyone looking at the situation is always in that space of, you want to play Liverpool now and not when they sack him and get a new coach. But we'll see. Viewers, look, give us your thoughts, give us your opinions in the comments section below. I wanted to speak Chelsea for a moment, because just over a week ago, they were in the title race. They drew against Arsenal. They were going to catch Arsenal, according to a number of their fans. They were playing well. You fast forward 2 games, a battering away at Leeds, but that was all Tosin's fault. They then draw away a limp Brighton, not scoring. They didn't concede, but that was more because Rob Sanchez made 3 or 4 brilliant saves. Defensively, they were still cut open. They were still bypassed in the midfield many times. No Tosin to blame this time. But that is 2 points in their last 3 games. They haven't closed the gap in that period against Arsenal. It's gone from 6 points to 8 points in that period. How bad a week do you think this is for Chelsea and their season overall?
It's probably the worst for a long time under Maresca. After that Arsenal game, they were on such a high, being the better team against the best team in the league with a man short. They then went in against Leeds. For the first half against Leeds, they were very, very poor. Got an early goal back, but then Calvert-Lewin makes it 3-2. I don't know if you watched a lot of that game against Bournemouth. That was one of the most boring games from a Chelsea perspective. Probably the most boring game this season. Bournemouth had a handful of chances. Sanchez got man of the match. There can't be any excuses because Palmer was playing. Reece James was back in the team. Again, questioning Maresca's lineups. Why didn't he play this lineup against Leeds? You've actually gone with a right back in a right back position. Your better centre backs playing, so there can't be any excuses. Palmer plays only 60 minutes, but yeah, a very, very poor week. And I'm going to be honest, mate, with their fixtures they've got coming up, they've got to play Aston Villa, who are on fire right now. They've got to play Newcastle United away. Everton are on good form. And then they've got Bournemouth, and then the first game in January, they've got City. This could get quite ugly very quickly for Chelsea. There is, because of how congested it is between 4th and, say, I think it's 12th, there's only a handful of points. If the results go against them, there's 5 points between 5th and 13th. If they don't get the right result against, say, Everton, who are on good form, and bearing in mind Chelsea would have played the League Cup and the Champions League before that fixture, although they've got a very big squad, questions need to be asked, because what are Chelsea right now? I don't think they're in a title race. I think they are in a top 4 race, but they could slip away quite quickly. Look, it's a very reactionary football. They could go on a handful of games and people decent results, and people will say they're back in the race. But right now, since that Arsenal game, they've been very poor. I mean, they've got a difficult Champions League game tomorrow. It's always tough playing away in Italy. And Atalanta are a relatively decent side who are on decent-ish form, but they're low in the table. They're 12th in the league this year in Italy. Chelsea should be going out there and beating them. But right now, can you comfortably say, hand on heart, you think Chelsea will win? I don't think you can, because of how inconsistent they are. A handful of decent results, lose to Sunderland. Handful of decent results, lose to Brighton. Decent results, lose to Leeds. They need to get that consistency back in the game, but are they ever going to get that consistency when you're relying on that back line? I don't think you are. When you're relying on, Chalobah, Buddy Shield, Tosin, I don't think you are, mate. But to answer your question, it has been a shocking week for them.
Yeah, look, I think it has been. It's been a really, really poor week from their point of view and perspective. I really like this Chelsea team. And I'm about to say I really like it when they're playing well. That sounds a little bit strange when I actually say it out loud. But when I watch them play, I see so much quality. This last week has really annoyed me as a football fan, because I look at it and think Maresca made big mistakes against Leeds. And then what you see is the young nature of this squad come out. It's like, okay, we didn't beat Arsenal, messed up against Leeds. Bournemouth is a hard place to go. And they just played within themselves so much in that game. And I've been a big detractor of Rob Sanchez. I don't think he is good enough when it comes to those marginal gains, those little inches you need when it comes to a title race, when it comes to winning the league. I think you need a better goalkeeper. Now, most goalkeepers that are better than Rob Sanchez, when it comes to shot stopping and preventing goals, they're only marginally better, but those margins are really important in the game. But the players at the weekend were so poor. It wasn't just, Tosin got blamed against Leeds, but Delat was poor. João Pedro was poor. Neto was on the bench, but came on and he scored a goal, but needed more from him. Gittins was poor. Enzo Fernandez, poor. This weekend just gone, I felt very much the same. It felt, the first half they did almost nothing. They didn't look like scoring a goal. That game could have gone on for another hour and Chelsea wouldn't have scored a goal. And some might blame Maresca. And it's fair. Like, managers always get the blame. But at the same time, I look at individual players and go, you are better than that. Palmer's the only player I give a little bit of leeway to because he's just come back from injury. But I watched João Pedro when he came on. Just completely and utterly ineffective. In the first half, I saw a lot of Chelsea fans say we're not utilising the wings properly. And he did. Just the wingers did bad jobs. The manager was, get the ball out to the wings, let's run at their fullbacks. They just couldn't beat them or didn't try to beat them. It's not the manager's fault that's going on. I think it's been a really disappointing week. And as you say, this is where Chelsea have got to get back to winning ways soon, because winning can become a habit, but so can losing. Draw away at Atalanta. I don't know where that would leave them in the Champions League. I'm just looking at the group stage now. They're not in a bad. They're seventh, right? They're not in a bad position right now. Obviously, they won their previous game against Barca, but drop points here, go to 11 points. They could potentially drop outside that top 8, which you really want to be in. As an example, you go to the game after that. Well, they got a gimme or they got an easy game. They got an easy or a hard game after that in the league.
They've got
Everton at home.
Everton, which are
Yeah,
not an easy game at the moment.
they're not easy. They're not an easy game at the moment. You know, you've got to go and beat Atalanta. You've got to go and beat Everton. Then they've got Cardiff away in the cup, which I think they win. Then they're away to Newcastle. And these next two.
Villa.
Yeah, and then Aston Villa, their next run of games, and then they got Bournemouth again, then they got City. They've got a very hard run of games up until the 4th of January. They've got to get themselves back into winning ways. They've got to get themselves back into a streak. And I think they've got to start this week against Atalanta. But again, viewers, give us your thoughts and opinions on Chelsea and what has been a disappointing week for them.
Just quickly, do you think they're regretting selling Dewsbury Hall?
No, look, Dewsbury Hall's doing better at Everton because teams don't sit back.
Less pressure,
less pressure, more space.
Very good.
Less pressure, more space. That there is a difference. I speak about this a lot. When you're an attacker or a midfielder or attack-minded midfielder, striker, winger, you leave a smaller club and go to a Chelsea, an Arsenal, or Liverpool. Teams sit back, less space for you to operate in. When you're a defender, it's the opposite. The smaller clubs, you're more compact. You've got your fellow defenders closer, midfielder closer. You go to a big club, it's more isolated, one-on-one defending. So you need to be of a higher level. Dewsbury Hall is where he should be. He's a Premier League player, but he's at Everton level. You put him in a Chelsea team, an Arsenal team, he'll struggle with the lack of space and the time that he gets. That's why he scored a great goal against United, because we didn't close him fucking down. Talking about big teams, on Arsenal, obviously they dropped points at the weekend. And it's typical they drop points and the Arteta out has kind of come out. This is what we told you would happen. Well, most people predicted you could drop points away at a really good Aston Villa. In fact, I keep talking to people about this and it seems to fall on deaf ears, but I think that's conveniently. And that is when you look at the Premier League table, and it's changed a bit in the last week, but from 14th place to the top of the league, barring Tottenham, going away to Brentford, Bournemouth, United, Newcastle, Liverpool, Sunderland, Brighton, Everton, Chelsea, Palace, Villa, City, Arsenal. None of those games are easy. Mm-hmm. And none of them are easy. So all of those teams have proven in the last year, even Man United have beaten Chelsea this year. We're probably on the, you're out of it, your home form's crap. We're on the borderline after our last 2 games. Every other team in there is a hard place to go. That's why I didn't quite understand the meltdown of late. Yes, they've drew to Sunderland. Yes, they've drawn to Chelsea, and now they lost to Aston Villa. But what do you think? Do you think this is the start of a collapse, a start of the weaknesses? Or they can't beat the top teams away from home now, even though they have beaten Newcastle, they have beaten Manchester United, who are in that pack. Do you feel that this is a sign that Arsenal won't win the league, as a lot of people are claiming?
I put a TikTok out saying after the game, saying, "Is this the start of the downfall?" Because I wanted to see what the sort of comments would be like, and I basically went on the video to say that I don't think it will be. They've got key players missing. You know, they are playing in the Champions League without 3 of their main centre backs because of Mosquera, Gabriel, and Saliba are all out. I don't think this is the start of the downfall. They have. Bearing in mind, Arsenal have played in the last month Bayern Munich, Chelsea, Spurs, and Aston Villa. With other games around it, they're through to the next round of the League Cup. They are still in the Champions League. Their fixtures they've got coming up in the Premier League aren't the easiest. They've still got to play Bournemouth away. They've still got to play Aston Villa again. However, the next 4 games for them, for me, are the perfect sort of momentum builder to get you back into that form. They've lost 2 of 9 to 21 games, something stupid like that. They're still top of the league by 2 points. As great as the City win was against Aston Villa, I still don't think they're strong enough defensively to go on and win a league title. You know, bearing in mind that same City team conceded 4 goals against Fulham, looked really good against Sunderland by all accounts, but I still think Arsenal are without doubt favourites. If they go and beat Club Brugge, which you'd expect them to, their next 3 Premier League games are Wolves at home, which Arsenal could probably play their under-21s right now and beat Wolves. They're that bad. Then they've got Everton away, which won't be easy, under the lights. That'll be a tough game. Then after that, though, they've got Palace in the League Cup. You'd expect them to beat Palace. They've got Brighton at home, Villa at home, and Bournemouth away. After the Bournemouth game, though, again, Liverpool, Forest, Inter Milan, Man United, they should be going into those games as clear favourites. They are, for me, the strongest team in the league. Bearing in mind Kai Havertz, Gabriel, Saliba, Martinelli still isn't fully fit. Gyökeres is the big question mark that a lot of Arsenal fans are, speaking about. They've got a number of key players out. When Gabriel and Saliba are back in that team, I've got no doubt Arsenal going to win this league title. If you took, for an example, to use as an example, if we took Romero and Van der Ven out of our back line, we would fall apart. If you took, let's use Liverpool for an example. If you took Alisson and Van Dijk out and they had to play Joe Gomez and let's say Leone was fit, they would fall apart. They only lost in the last 9 minutes to Aston Villa, who have lost one home game in 13 months. And bearing in mind, Unai Emery, in my opinion, does have recently Arteta's number. I think he's only lost one of his last 8 games against Villa. Lost against Arsenal, because he always has a point to prove because he feels hard done by because he got let go. Like, there is absolutely no shame in losing away to Aston Villa. They've beaten City this season. They've beaten us this season. They've beaten Arsenal. I think the only Big Six team to beat them has actually been Liverpool, which was on that.
They're on a 9-game winning streak in all comps at home, Aston Villa.
If that was Arsenal or United, the media would be all over that.
I largely agree with you. I'm still not doing. The only thing I disagree with and push back on is there's no clear favourite to win the league for me. I think Arsenal are the marginal favourites. So I do have doubts still that City could come back and win this. As an example, Arsenal, the injury crisis could continue. Maybe the pressure gets on top. That's plausible to me, but I still see them as the favourites. But I think the meltdown only really exists because rivals and Arteta outers have had about 2.5-3 months where they've not really been able to complain. So it was just a day where they got to complain. That's all it really was. It was a moment where they go, I can actually have a go at them for the first time in months. And I think, but even the guys that don't want Arteta to be successful and the rivals, of course, don't want Arsenal to win, it was still relatively tame because they can see the next game is Wolves. They then play, as you've already mentioned, in the Premier League this year. They then play Everton away, which is tough, but I still think Arsenal win that game because I don't think Everton are Aston Villa's level. So if I look at it and think they drew with Chelsea, was a little bit of an anomaly game, went down to 10 men. I think Chelsea are better than Everton, and I think that Aston Villa are better than Everton, and that was a narrow defeat and a draw. I think Arsenal, with a few more players returning, because I think Saliba will be back by then, they'll win that game. They beat Wolves at home. I think they beat Brighton at home. Then they've got Aston Villa at home. And again, as tight as that game was, I think Arsenal win that game at home. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, I see them winning their next 4 games. I think it's really plausible they win the next 4 games. So that's why I looked at some of the meltdowns at the weekend and thought, you can criticize the moment, but the meltdowns to me, I felt were absolutely crazy. But equally, that's because I look at Arsenal fans at the moment of having first world problems. My club's a joke. My team is so average. I look at the level of anger I saw from some gooners at the weekend, and I just thought, it feels a bit much for you. Only your second defeat of the season. You're still top of the league. And the one thing I will throw in there, I don't think anyone's going to go on long winning runs this year. I think 5, 6, maybe 7 wins on the bounce is about the maximum you're going to see from anyone. I think City are 5 wins on the bounce at the minute, I think, in the Premier League. I'm going to go and check this. So City are... No, they can't be because they lost a couple of games ago. But City in the Premier League are...
Yeah,
3 wins in the
back. They lost 3.
3. Their next game is away against Crystal Palace. Yeah. Granted, but on City, I think they drop points in the next game away against Crystal Palace. Aston Villa are on a really good run. Their next game actually, their next game in the Premier League. See, they're away to West Ham, so I see them do. They actually could get to 7 here because they go to West Ham and then they play Man United at home. They're going to beat us, there's no doubt. But then they go away to Chelsea and away to Arsenal. And I look at that and they could get to 6 and 7. They could, although West Ham have been a lot better recently. They've been a lot better. I just don't see many teams hitting 7, 8, 9, 10 game winning streaks. I've said it all year. Everyone's going to get stopped. I think as soon as you go against that group I mentioned in that top sort of 12, 13, everyone is going to lose points to at least 50% of that group away from home this year. And Arsenal, I felt were going to be no different. I think Arsenal have been the best of everybody this year, but everyone's going to drop points to those teams because they're hard to play. Our league is so different to so many others. This isn't Germany. This isn't Spain. This isn't Italy, where the top 2 or 3 teams invariably beat everybody from 5th place down, home and away. That doesn't go on in the Premier League at the moment because teams are so strong. And that's why I thought the meltdowns were a little bit over the top. Doesn't mean there isn't criticism. Doesn't mean they shouldn't feel disappointment. But you can criticize without going absolutely crazy, in my opinion. You can't, if your whole, especially if you're a content creator, if your whole life is I have to shit on my own club, of course, you've got to, I get why you've got to go in. Christmas is coming. You've got to earn money. Fair play to you. I get it. I do understand it, Henry. But I just feel that it was a little bit over the top from some people. The next game's Wolves. I think they beat Bruges. I think they beat Wolves. I think they win their next 3 games, no problems whatsoever. I think they win all 3 quite comfortably as well, by the way. I do think they're in a bit of a dip. But they're always going to have a dip. Every team has a dip. Even the Centurions had a dip in that season. If you go and look, they threw a lead away to United. They lost in the Champions League. Every team has a dip. I swear the Centurion season was also... I could be wrong.
Isn't it better for them to have a dip now rather than having it in March/April? Because that's like the business end of the season where, quote unquote, that's where Arsenal have fallen away in recent years. Like, as well, a lot of people aren't actually realising as well, at the end of the month, they're going to have Jesus and Havertz back. So, as great as Mourinho has been, he's not a better striker than Kai Havertz, in my opinion. You can have the Gyökeres debate until the cows come home. But when they actually get their number 9 back, and Jesus will give good squad depth as well as all the other injuries back.
I was about to say to you, sorry to interject. The Centurion season was the year that Wigan, not in the Prem then, knocked them out of the FA Cup as an example. A few weeks later, just before that, they'd been beaten by Liverpool 4-3. The next game, they literally got beat. By Wigan 1-0 in the FA Cup. Later on in the season, United came back from behind to beat them, and that wasn't too far away. Then they got knocked out. They lost a Champions League game to Basel, but were already through, and then they got beat by Liverpool in that same period in the Champions League. So sometimes you get quite fortunate when you go through a rough patch where your form isn't quite right, where it might cover 2 or 3 comps. So you're losing the Cup, you're losing the Champions League, you're losing the Prem, then you get back to winning ways. It happened to Liverpool in their first title under Klopp, where they Premier League title, well, their only title under Klopp, where they were looking like they might do the invincible treble, and then they got knocked out of the FA Cup by Everton, knocked out of the Champions League, and lost to Watford, all in a very short space of time. Then they recovered. That's all that I think is really going on with Arsenal right now, is they're having a little bit of a bad patch, and it just so happens that it's covered 3 Premier League games as opposed to a cup game and something, which you could also argue is a good thing, because had it had happened in a League Cup game and gone out, then you're out of the tournament. I think they're going to be. I think they're going to be absolutely fine. I don't see this as the beginning of any collapse. I think Arsenal, win it or not, I think they're going to be in this title race right until the end of the league season. So I don't think for me, what a collapse would be is leading by 5 points and then being out of the title race by the time you get to the last 10 games, 15 points off top. That's a collapse. This week, City have caught them. It's very likely in the next round of games, Palace beat or take points off City, and Arsenal beat Wolves, and you're back to the 5-point margin again. That's how it's going to. I think that's how it's going to go for a number of weeks. Oh, look, they've gone to 6 points. I was back to 3. Oh, they've gone back to 6 points. Oh, they dropped. They drew. It's 5. Oh, Arsenal lose. City win. It's back to 2 points. It's going to go up and down like that. And I just think the worst thing Arsenal fans can do to their club is panic and put any nervous energy, any unrequired nervous energy into that dressing room. I think it personally would be crazy. Final point on tonight's games. We are running out of time. How do you think United are going to get on against Wolves?
I know how you feel. I actually think you will win. I think you have to win. It's as simple as that. Wolves they're on track at the moment. I think they may even beat Derby's record for points. Ruben, if he loses this game, in my opinion, he has to go. No if, buts or maybes. I expect to see a corner flag picture about 10:15 this evening. Club statement. Man United have parted ways with Bruno Fernandes. Not Bruno Fernandes, sorry. Ruben Amorim. You have to win. It's as simple as that. Your squad is far superior to them. you should be going out there and scoring 2 or 3 goals past them. I didn't really like the comments he made last week about Kobe Mainoo saying, could he come on and change the game from an offensive standpoint? And he laughed. I actually watched Mark say something the other day on the United stand saying that a lot of these youngsters aren't thriving because there's not the right environment for them to thrive in. And I think he's bang on the money with that. But a lot of that does come down to the culture from the manager. In the last, I think United fans are even turning on Lenny Yoro as well. I see a lot of tweets about it. But in the last year or so, since you've had Ruben, how many youngsters have really come through and excelled at a top level? You name any? You can't.
Yeah, I think so. I'm someone that's critical of our players because I feel they need to be criticised, right? I think that some of our players have been poor in games. Lenny Yoro having a bad couple of games, I don't give him the same stick as I do a Luke Shaw, who's been, barring a couple of decent seasons, has been nowhere near the level from a performance point of view or an availability level for over a decade. I have a different energy for it. But I do believe players deserve some criticism because in some of our games this season and in some moments in games, it's been individual player mistakes that have cost us more than the system. And that leads to a nervousness and that leads to an anxiety which cripples a system. Because when we play with some authority and some intensity and a little bit of confidence starts to beat through us, we move the ball well, we approach the ball well, and we create goal-scoring opportunities. So I'm not one of these people that just believes it's purely coaching or purely system or purely players or purely the manager. I think it's a combination of the things. But Ruben Amorim just hasn't done a good enough job to get these players into a mindset and a space where they're able to perform to the highest of their abilities regularly enough. And that's why he's for the high jump. That being said, I think we lose tonight because of all those reasons. I think that they're going to
lose to Wolves.
We can and we will. We're going to lose 2-1. And it will be, in my opinion, it will be a late counter-attack goal. We might even take the lead.
They haven't won a game all season, didn't you?
This is exactly why we are going to lose to them tonight.
If you lose to Wolves, that will be the biggest shock for me all season because they are that bad, mate. Their numbers, they've only scored 7 goals and they've conceded 29.
They're going to concede 1 tonight. They're going to score 2 tonight. I'm just convinced of it. It
would be like a United.
It's the exact thing that United have been doing in the last 3 to 4 years. And in fact, we've been doing it for over a decade now, where you'll get, Fulham haven't won at Old Trafford for 37 years, bang, they win. Spurs haven't won, bang, they win. United haven't thrown away a lead from this position in 62 years, bang, it's happened.
If you lose.
No, I don't actually. I've got an horrible feeling he'll stay even if he loses. And I can't quite put my finger onto why. I'm not really into the conspiracy theories, but I don't think it will end his time at the club. Equally, I want him gone. A lot of people have a go at me for not being aggressive enough about wanting him out. But it's just because I don't believe it's going to fix us too much. I think that I'm losing faith rapidly in Ineos. I think we could bring a better coach in who makes us play better football and we might get a higher win percentage. But I still think we'll level out at some point and it'll be the same rants and the same moaning from people. The same individual telling me to not blame any of the players right now. We'll be the first to blame the players when they get a manager they like in, where I think we should keep the same energy throughout. So yeah, I'm just very unenthused. I feel like I'm being boiled alive, but the problem is I've got a chance here to jump out of the frying pan or the saucepan. But the only place there is for me to land is in the fireplace. So either way, I'm going to get burnt to death. It's just how I feel right now. So I'm better off part of me feels like I'm better off just staying where I am and slowly boiling to death than I am jumping out, getting a little bit of hope, but landing on the hot embers of a fire.
What's that saying? It's better to know the devil you know than...
Well, it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't. And to a degree, I agree with that. Again, but the problem is there's a lot of low IQ Man United fans go, I can't believe you're defending Amorim. It's not about defending Amorim. I know you see it that way because your brain doesn't work like mine does. Fair enough. But from my point of view, it isn't about sacking him or not. Suddenly, people are trusting Ineos, who they've slagged off since they've been here. I'm not trusting Ineos anymore with managerial appointments because it'll be 2 failures in their first 2 appointments, 2 failures. I hope they get it right. I hope I'm wrong. Areola comes in, we go up to another level, we go 4-3-3, Baliba comes in, we're flying, we kill it with a bounce, the bounce turns to regular improvement, and in 2 years' time I look back and go, I'm so glad we got rid of Amorim, I'm so glad they were improving. I hope that happens. And I'll hold my hands up and say, I was wrong to doubt it, but why do I doubt it? Because every single time we've sacked a manager so far since Fergie, I predicted we'll get worse, and we have got worse, and I'm scared of being right again. You know, we all get things wrong. We all get things right. And I'm not calling anybody else out individually here. I can't ever, in my life, I can never ignore the wider picture. It's never about the here and now. For me, the here and now is important. You enjoy it, but I'm always looking ahead. What comes next? What do I do after? What's my exit plan? And I'm looking at us and I'm thinking, the same people telling me that we will get it right eventually with a manager are the same people that tell me every summer, don't back the owners, don't back the recruitment, they're shit, we're run badly. And I just sit there and go, well, how can you say that, but then have faith we're going to get the manager right? It doesn't make sense to me. So I find it hard to get excited. I think that's what the issue is. But look, I'm predicting a 2-1 defeat. Viewers, give us your thoughts and opinions in that comment section below. Until next time, people, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And we'll see you soon. Peace.